Hello and welcome to North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. My name is Serge. Today we got a Nelly.
Hey, I'm here.
We got a Wheeler.
Horror.
Shout out to James on Tech.
Hey, that's me.
And a reminder that everything we do is brought to you by you with your support over the Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Welcome to part one of our Duskmourn House of Horror set review. I had to say that slowly. I keep trying to say Duskborn House of Horrors.
Dusk Forlorn.
I wish there was an E at the end of Duskmourn.
Oh,
Sure.
Like that
Yeah.
fancy extra E they throw on old-timey English words sometimes?
No, just the regular E.
Oh. All right, fair. Dang.
Ye olde Duskmourn.
Duskmourn, eh?
So for part one of our set review, we're going to be covering white, blue, and black cards. A reminder that our set reviews are not exhaustive. We do not talk about every single card in the set, just the ones that we think are relevant or that we think you're going to ask questions about. We're also covering the Commander product when, again, those cards are relevant to talk about. And let's jump right on into it with Wheeler.
Enduring Innocence. 1 white for an enchantment creature, Sheep Glimmer.
Love it.
It's a 2/1 with lifelink that says whenever one or more other creatures you control with power 2 or less enter, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. When Enduring Innocence dies, if it was a creature, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. It is an enchantment, and it is not a creature. This is a part of a cycle. I believe this is the only one we're talking about, potentially another one, but this is far and above the best one of the cycle for a couple of reasons. One, it's cheap. It's 3 mana. 2, it's sheep. It's 3 mana.
It's got sheep mana.
But yeah, it's cheap. It is an effect that players are already playing in certain builds of Ruin Your Evening or the like Ruin Your Evening. We talk about it a lot, obviously, as the premier, not even the premier.
Evening Ruin.
No one's fighting you on this one. You don't have to clear your throat.
No, people are playing it now.
This
Oh,
is
okay,
the thing, is
okay.
that this
Yeah.
deck sees a lot of play.
No one here is fighting you.
At least
over
as the father of ruining your
Sure.
evening. Is that there are so many variations of this deck that can be played now. But one of the recurring features across all the versions is that they like to play these card advantage engines, cards like Welcoming Vampire and Luris of the Dream Den, which isn't the exact same thing, but kind of has that, like, one card lets you do multiple things.
Same family.
It's very hurtful how much better this is than Mentor of the Meek.
Yeah, Mentor of the
Right.
I mean,
You know, Metro the Meek walked so that Enduring Innocence could run.
yeah, I might play all of them. Who knows?
I really like this card next to a Phantasmal image. Because,
oh,
like,
yeah.
then if the clone gets the when this dies, if it was a creature, return to the battlefield, and then it becomes an enchantment, but you can, like, double up on your ETB
Yeah,
and
you
then
could
just have an
copy.
enchantment.
Now you're thinking like a commander player.
Or well,
Damn.
this card does that to you a little bit.
Non-derogatory.
Honestly, well, yeah, does the whole archetype do that a little bit? Like, Ruin Your Evening, I feel like there's a bit of a commander vibe, because it's just like,
Yeah.
hey, we're playing Canadian Highlander, but we're stuck here.
Well, you're setting. It's a deck that sets up an engine that is in it for a long time, not a good time, and you are kind of gaining incremental value, but doing so in a way that
Doesn't end the game.
that old control decks used to do, but is now mostly absent from the format. Like, you're just, I'm just going to grind you into dust. And, like, there are some spots where, like, you might get Tendrils or Fourth Aerolingust out because of that. But, because the format is so board-based that you're probably just fine. Just, like, being as annoying as hell. And this card is incredibly annoying. It has a 0-10 matchup versus Orcish Bowmasters, though. So that is, like, one of the
Sure.
downsides is that it gets shot by a Bowmasters. And then, although it comes back and lets you draw more cards, that Bowmasters might still be around. So it's best to play it with your own copy of Bowmasters to deal with their Bowmasters.
I got to give a quick shout out to my boy Green White Sanctum Stompy here. I think this card is an all-star in it. Ironically, it lets you draw off of casting your enchantresses.
Oh, wild.
Right?
Yeah.
And then if you already have an enchantress in play, it works really well on both sides. And if you've got Sithis, for example, which is not a cast trigger, you could draw off this twice. because of it's a when it enters kind of
Yeah.
clause.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
this card is fantastic for that deck.
Yeah, and ethereal armor on this can just like solo a red deck, right?
Right?
Like,
Yeah.
That's worth mentioning. Yeah, I like this little sheep.
Nice.
All right, Nelly.
Reluctant Role Model. 1 and a white for a 2/2 human survivor with survival. This is a new mechanic, but it's also just an ability word. So just listen to this ability. At the beginning of your second main phase, if Reluctant Role Model is tapped, put a flying, lifelink, or +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever Reluctant Role Model or another creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, put those counters on up to one target creature. So there's a series of cards with survival. They all require that the creature is tapped at the beginning of the second main phase, and then they do something different. This is probably the best one. It's the best one I can remember from looking through the set. And it's got kind of the vibes of that Golem from Ikoria, the 3/3 for 3 that just gets a different counter every turn. You have to work a little bit harder, if you're playing some kind of Springleaf Drum. That's been the popular one to point out on Twitter. But, if you have a Convoke spell or any other way to cheat getting it tapped, then you can make it Lorge for free. But otherwise, just, bear. Cast early, get in often.
Attack.
Make them lose life point.
The second ability is somewhat relevant. It does
For sure.
give you modular, basically, for all of your other creatures, which is pretty cool. And
Yeah.
especially after Ikoria, the ability to put ability counters on creatures, not just +1/+1s. Like, it's niche, but it does give it a little bit more of a flex slot beyond just bear.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, this card's second ability is a bit like the original Ozolith, right? Allowing you to rebuy your counters, as we said. Our format doesn't have a ton of the flying, lifelink, death touch counters, but they're starting to be around a little bit more. So I don't know. Yeah, green, white, +1/+1 counters. I think
Yeah,
that's all right.
that's what
You're
I'm talking
mostly
about.
in it for the +1/+1 counters, but I mean, worth mentioning that one of the issues that the counters deck can have is like, I have a 20/20 creature, but it doesn't have trample or it
But
doesn't
my
have
opponent has
flying or
infinite
whatever.
1/1s, right?
Yeah. And so being able to toss over a flying counter is pretty nice. Like, I imagine that's the first one you go for. It's
Yeah,
just
you
like-
get to pick with this one,
Yeah.
unlike the
Yeah.
Golem where you got them at random. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
All right, next up, we have Shard Mage's Rescue. This is a 1-mana aura for a single white pip, has flash, enchant creature you control. As long as the rescue entered this turn, the enchanted creature has hexproof, and enchanted creature gets +1/+1. I like this card in exactly one deck, which is the Sanctum Stompy, in that you now have a pretty classic effect of an instant speed protect your own creature, normally found in green, but in the form of an aura, which if you're playing Ethereal Armor or any of the Enchantresses, also draws you a card. Otherwise, you should probably just play the green ones. I don't know. You're probably not playing this in D&T. You have other forms of disruption and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Getting some nodded heads from the other side.
yeah.
totally agree.
It's niche. It exists. It's cool.
I do like it for Sanctum Stompy, though. I think
Yeah.
it's better than the other counter spells for keeping creatures alive.
There's always been an interesting cycle. Cycle's maybe the wrong word. An interesting question in your deck of synergy versus mid-range power. And so I want to bring us back to, it's the year 2014, and every deck is playing Sun Titan. And you ask yourself the question of, do you play just a spell? Do you play Doomblade or Disenchant? Or do you play the aura version of it, the seal of Doomblade or the seal of Disenchant, on the offhand chance that your Sun Titan brings it back and you get slightly more value? You see where I'm going with this?
Absolutely.
I do, but I don't remember much Seal of Doom in 2014.
That's fair.
Calney Heart Expedition, I think, is the closest we could get.
Nope.
Like, that was the thing.
Still, you gotta
still
go
lost
older.
you.
Gotta
Yeah.
go older.
Older? Okay. I play Shard Mage's Rescue and Sanctum Stompy.
All right.
Yeah, this
let's
card-
move.
yeah,
Let's move on, Wheeler.
Split up. 1 white for a sorcery. You choose one. Destroy all tapped creatures or destroy all untapped creatures. So this is a card that is not actually a Wrath of God that's going to make you think it's a Wrath of God. To keep it
It
pretty
happened to me.
quick, I don't think you're going to be playing this card because you only get so many Wraths in this format. Like control decks with Wraths typically only play 1 or 2. Like Jeskai Control with Mystical Tutor is going to play Terminus and Supreme Verdict And that's basically it. It may play like a Brotherhood's End, but that's closer to a Pyroclasm than a Wrath, and we don't have time to get into the semantics about all this. But this card, not only is it just too shaky at the timing, but also, like, if you try to look at this card as though it is not a Wrath, but instead like a 3-mana kill your creature that also just occasionally kills some other creatures. Like 3 mana, I really need to kill this Tarmogoyf that's untapped, but also they played like a Llanowar Elf with it or whatever. Like, that's not the end of the world, but it's not powerful enough for Canadian Highlander. So despite the fact that this is 3 mana, well, Terminus is 1 mana.
I might try it. Honestly, I'm looking at this as potentially being like an aggressive removal spell, like 3 mana, 2 Assassinates if we're racing over the initiative, or 3 mana, I make a chump attack. I do lose 1 or 2 of my creatures, but now all my creatures are tapped, and then I kill your remaining creatures. So, like, I could see trying it in the sort of Naya mid-range, or the various 4-color decks that have, like, access to whatever mana they want and are just playing a bunch of creatures, like the initiative mana dork decks.
I don't know, man. Those decks like leverage their 1 mana spells, not their 3 mana spells.
Just read the flavor text. Don't be a wimp. We'll lose more games this way.
Yes.
Okay.
Look for me in the queue jamming this and losing games. I'm almost certain that's the way it's going to go.
Whenever you're ready, Nelly.
Let's talk now about a better card. It's the Wandering Rescuer. 3 white for a 3/4 legendary human samurai noble with Flash and Convoke and Double Strike. And other tapped creatures you control have hexproof. Okay, so 3/4 Double Strike with Flash, that Convoke, which, as a reminder, taps your creatures, and then when it ETBs, your other tapped creatures get hexproof. So it's kind of like another Shard Mage's Rescue, or any of those green spells, or other white spells that give protection or hexproof to your stuff, countering their Lightning Bolt trying to kill your creature and giving you a bonus 3/4 Double Strike. So yeah, I don't know.
This is a Serge card.
I could imagine a world where D&T tries this. It's 5 mana, but it has Convoke.
I kind of like this for green-white little kid,
Sure.
or for like mono-white humans. You do get 1 or 2 larger cards to play alongside Rick from The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty good card, like, to consider in that slot. The Flash is nice. 4 toughness is not nothing. And, like, this card just acting like a counterspell.
Yeah.
And popping up on, like, as early as turn 3 or whatever.
Like, if you're not in a matchup where the counterspell is going to be very relevant, probably you're in a matchup where the Flash 3/4 Double Strike eats their creature, right? Like, you're very likely against all of the common opponents you have in Canadian Highlander to get some real value out of this card.
Not to mention, it's not that, like, uncommon for the white X creature decks to just pass with open mana.
Yeah.
Like, the more flash threats that we get, Containment Priest, Felia, Wandering Rescuer, the other Wandering Emperor,
Right.
like,
Yeah, the
they
4-mana
help
one.
kind of mask what your intentions are with my daughter.
Like, it used to just be Resto Angel you played around. Yeah.
Exactly.
I
But
like
now,
the 3/4 nod. Yeah.
Yeah, now you're just like, okay, my mono white opponent has all this mana open and didn't attack. Like,
Oh, no.
what do I play around? What can I afford to play around? And they always pick the wrong choice.
I see Double Strike. I immediately think of equipment decks. I will put this in red-white equipment or Naya equipment in a heartbeat. You like blank a spell, untap, give it the Shadow Spear. You're off to the races.
I mean,
right? Like,
yeah. No, this card's fantastic
Yeah.
in equipment because
Yeah.
that's a deck where the counterspell mode is so relevant.
Yeah, just protect your threat.
Yeah.
They're
You already
waiting-
put a bunch of mana on
Yep.
equipments,
Yeah.
right?
All right, next up we have the Veteran Survivor. This is a 1-mana 2/1 human survivor for a single white pip. Has the survivor keyword ability?
Ability word.
Ability word, pardon me.
Yeah.
At the beginning of your second main phase, if it is tapped, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. And then, as long as there are 3 or more cards exiled with Veteran Survivor, it gets +3/+3 and has hexproof. What a phenomenal Savannah line with an upside. Now, I am curious how deep the pool of 1-mana 2/1s and 1-mana 2/2s is. I haven't really played White Weenie or D&T long enough to know that this is up there. So I think this card's going to be fighting in the slot of Dried Militant when it comes to 2/1s that are trying to fight your opponent's graveyard. This might be one of these scenarios where you want to play both. But if the goal is an aggressive threat that's also somewhat disruptive, we're not quite sure. That being said, if you're looking for a density of 1-mana 2/1s, this one has a lot of upside. And if you're still playing Savannah Lion, you can probably replace it with this at this point, unless you're just going for vibes.
I mean,
And it's a human. Very relevant. Very relevant.
Who would win in a Savannah? This or a Savannah Lion?
Yeah.
I don't, like
Yeah,
the humans decks
Yeah.
play Mardu Woe Reaper sometimes still because they want a density and like
curve.
Dragon Hunter.
Yeah.
And I refuse to believe Dragon Hunter actually comes up in your games.
I think they just like saying Dragon Hunter.
They-
Cast Dragon Hunter.
they just like being like, it blocks Murktide region. It's like, you have Swords to Plowshares
Yeah.
and Path and like the big flyers.
And
the only
Giant
thing
Killer.
yeah, it's just like you have tools of dealing with that.
I actually have like within the last 12 months, I think, like thought I had like lethal for sure in 2 turns, and then I was like, oh, protection from dragons. Like I have been on my computer desk once.
Incredible.
In recent memory, like, all right, protection from dragons.
Oh. Enough said?
Yeah, card's good.
Let's
For
discuss.
Savannah Lions,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
Let's move on to blue. Wheeler.
Abhorrent Oculus. 2 and a blue for a 5/5 creature eye. With, as an additional cost to cast this spell, you exile 6 cards from your graveyard. It has flying. And at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, manifest dread. This is a new keyword, ability word ability thing.
This is just an ability.
Yeah, sure, why not? Manifest Dread is very similar to Manifest, except because it's 2024.
It's just better.
It's just better. You look at the top 2 cards of your library, and you put one of them onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature, and the other into your graveyard. And you can turn it face up any time for its mana cost if it's a creature card. So it's Manifest, except you get card selection and fueling your graveyard.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this right out the gates. I am likely going to evaluate Manifest Dread a lot higher than most people. I don't actually know your 2 thoughts on it, but I think it's kind of cracked. You get card selection, you get free bodies, and you get to fuel your graveyard. That's wild. And there are cards that repeatably do it. This is one of them, but I think this card sucks. Or rather, I think I like this card in particular really suffers from the fact that Modern Horizon sets exist because it fills this role that just kind of is already filled, like meeting the requirement and having to exile 6 cards from your graveyard to get something that doesn't do anything immediately is a little iffy, as well as like it's just you're fighting it. This card will fight the slot of Murktide Regent, Treasure Cruise, or even Dig Through Time.
I was going to say it's going to fight the slot of like Uro or any of the other 3-mana. Are those Titans or Giants?
Titans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're giants.
I wanted to say I like that there's someone at R&D that's just trying to jam Titans all the time, and on this set the rest of the team was like, okay, but only the back half.
Yes.
You can only have the escape.
So this ability is from like Innistrad Block,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
first
The
Innistrad,
blue
the
black
stitched.
zombies, right? Yeah, the
Yeah.
stitched
Oh,
cycle.
an
Yeah.
additional cost to
Yeah.
cast.
You,
as well.
yeah, you have to tax your own graveyard.
This is like the granddaddy because it requires 6.
Yeah.
And the most those ones had was like
This
3.
is better than Scob Ruinator, which
You heard it here
that was
first.
a 3-mana 5/6 flyer, right?
yes, that
Yeah.
you had to exile 3 creatures
Yep.
from your graveyard,
Yep.
Yeah.
but you could cast it from your graveyard. There's like some cheeky kind of setups where like you could unearth this or
Yep.
get into
Oh,
play.
that's what I was thinking. I think if you're playing this, you probably don't want to cast it, right?
Right, but then do I want to reanimate? Why am I reanimating this instead of something else?
Exactly, unearth is like a pretty good call
Yes,
out
yeah.
because it's 3 CMC, so you
Yep.
can't hit it with those other ones. Only go 2. There's a white unearth cycle now too.
helping
so-
helping
helping
hand.
hand. Yeah, and like with your surveil lands and your other manifest dread cards, getting this in your bins may not.
Like you're obviously playing in a deck that already has graveyard synergies, right? And you're
Yeah.
right. This is not a reanimator target, but I'm looking at recurring nightmare and I'm looking at chthonic nightmare as maybe reasons like a shell that could work this, but that's jumping through a lot of hoops. And
Yeah,
maybe this isn't even making the cut,
it
right?
looks like a 60 card to me.
Yeah, this card definitely fills that slot of like It is not the correct card to play in your deck if your intention is to win as many games as possible. But if you get this card into play and it does go unanswered, you're probably going to win the game. It's just the stars have to align where you can easily get this into play. It's not mucking up your like delirium or your graveyard count for your much more powerful delve spells. And
yeah, your Nethergoyf is looking at you like you're an idiot.
and then
right?
they just and like your opponent has nothing. So it's like
Yeah. I mean, if you do play like Mox, Surveil Land, Reanimate, or Unearth or
Yeah.
whatever, like it looks great. Yeah.
yeah.
All right, we can move on. We can move on.
Sure.
All right, Nelly, you're up.
Let's talk about Enter the Enigma. It's 1 blue mana for a sorcery that says target creature can't be blocked this turn and draw a card. That's right, fans of Oath of the Gatewatch. Now you can play this card without Devoid. It's a blue
Yeah.
card. You can exile it to Force of Will. Every cantrip matters. This is a cantrip. There's only one other one that's exactly the same as this. And honestly, I've played that one in the in exactly
Slip through space.
Yeah, Slip Through Space I've played in the like 5-color double strike. You made that list, right? I tweaked like one card or something.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of
5-color
these kind of cards.
Yeah, but
Shadow Rift is another good one.
5-color Berserk. Oh yeah.
It's like
Shadow.
this and
Yeah.
Infect.
Yes.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you could
Or
play
that
like
is
a rug, like Blitz kind of prowessy deck, like the make my Quirion Dryad or Questing Druid as large as possible and Berserk it. Like this card, those decks just want as many cantrips as possible, and they also want ways of pushing their big Dorcases through their opponent's board.
yeah, like when you're playing those decks, like the Slip Through Space is like one of the important cards that you plan your turns around. So great to have another one of those for that very niche audience.
Sick.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Entity Tracker. This is a 3-mana 2/3 human scout for 2 and a blue. It has flash and new ability word. Yes, got there. Eerie, which is landfall, but for enchantments, and whenever you fully unlock a room, do a thing. In this case, Eerie, whenever enchantment you control enters the battlefield, or you fully unlock a room, draw a card.
We didn't talk about rooms, but there's rooms in this set.
Wait.
Sorry.
A landfall for enchantments, so Constellation.
Yes.
Oh,
It's
it
true.
took me a second. I forgot. Yeah.
Constellation is landfall
This
for
is
enchantments.
yeah. I mean, look, as the premier lands pilot of the format,
And the Premier Enchantments player.
I probably shouldn't have got those mixed up. I'm
Premier
sorry.
Judge, actually. First judge
Oh,
at LRR.
Oh no.
Been here longer than me.
Well, that's just because you've both been judges longer than me, but I've been here at the company longer. I think Wheeler beat me by like 2 weeks being a
yeah,
judge.
you guys
That
were
was like
in
a
around a
round three.
crop. Yeah.
It was very close to each other.
That was a good year.
Anyways, this is exciting, mostly because this is the first ever blue enchantress.
Mono blue.
Mono blue, because you get Estrid, I think. No?
What's her
Tuvasa.
name?
No, Tavasa, that's what I meant. Sorry. Yeah, Tavasa, which is a 3-color one, but mono blue.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is a 3-mana enchantress that doesn't require 2 pips. It's a 2/3. It's got flash. I can't begin to tell you how important flash is on an enchantress because enchantresses are the linchpin of your deck. It is what makes you go from being a very bad deck playing very bad spells to a very medium deck playing bad spells, but getting a density of them fast enough that you don't die. And this opens up the sequencing for passing, casting in your end step, and then having mana to cast spells while your enchantress is still in play. I mean, mind you, it still dies to instant speed removal, but it just gives you more flexibility and more options to counterplay and stuff like that. Or even if they counter it, you don't spend your entire turn. I don't know. I'm very excited about this card. It's a very big deal. I don't think rooms are ever going to be relevant, but heck yeah to Entity Tracker. I mean, I might even try a blue version of Sanctum Stompy.
I think Vance Sanctum Stompy could be fine, right?
Yeah, because it's.
I've been trying to get you to play Tuvasa like this whole time.
Yeah, but it's a 2/3 with flash too, like a flash threat in that deck. Untap, give it a Rancor, draw a card. Beep beep.
Well, let's just address rooms briefly because you already said it. I just want to say it again. Like rooms are a new mechanic in this set, and you probably won't see them in Canadian Highlander.
Are we talking about any of them?
I think we have maybe 2, but
Oh, do
none
we?
in
Okay.
this.
Yeah,
episode.
there was one in white that was maybe another +1/+1 every combat. What's that?
No, there was one in white we were going to talk about, but it was not very. I reread it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I was going to say. We didn't end up talking about it, and
Yeah.
I was like, I thought that one was close, but whatever.
They'll show up when they show up.
Yeah.
And we'll tell you probably shouldn't play it, but that's okay.
All right, Wheeler, you're next.
Flood Pit's Drowner. 1 in a blue for a 2/1 merfolk with flash vigilance. And when Flood Pit's Drowner enters, tap target creature an opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. Then you can pay 1 in a blue and tap, shuffle Flood Pit's Drowner and target creature with a stun counter on it into their owner's libraries. Now, as the premier merfolk pilot of the format,
Won't find him there.
this card is great for, I think, exactly merfolk. A 1 toughness body is not super exciting in a world of Ren and 6 Orcish Bowmasters and Ocelot Pride. So the vigilance isn't doing much there.
does it have first strike?
I don't know. But this is a 2-drop with an easy to cast mana cost that is going to be able to disrupt the board, going to be able to smack in for damage immediately, basically, like flash it end step, tap your thing, untap, pop you for a couple damage there. It scales well with your lords because, you're going to
Merfolk.
make this toughness not crap. And yeah, just adds an extra layer of tricksy to the fish list, because that's a thing that they were kind of lacking until like Dominar United, where we got, well, I guess Commander Legends. Like we've gotten Hull Breacher, Voldalian Hexcatcher, and
The
this
Ixalan
one.
too is nice, right? The Tishana's Tidebinder.
Oh yeah, Tishana's Tidebinder.
They're nice.
Yeah.
Because it could be either the Dominary one or Tishana's or Hull Breacher before.
Yeah, now like or Merfolk Trickster,
Right.
or is that Dom U? I think that might.
Well,
be
isn't
Dom.
Trickster? It's the unmorph, right? Isn't that
No,
what that's-
Trickster
oh,
is the
Trickster's-
flash tap the thing, it loses
That's what I'm thinking of.
abilities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what-
So now when the Merfolk deck passes with mana up, you are going to have to think like, well, is it a counterspell or is it going to be a creature that's going to ruin my day? You're like, I'll play it safe and brainstorm. And you're like, oh, Hull Breacher.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, okay, well, great. Yeah, more fish that are good. I'll take them, especially as the green merfolk get better.
Yeah.
And your mana is still kind of crap. So we'll take merfolk that are easier to cast, especially because we might just need double green for some of the like heavier hitting cards, as well as just like gives you more disruption. So you're not just like an awkward deck of like, all right, here's my merfolk, here's my counter spells, and here's my fight spells, right? Like you can run into an awkward spot. So I like this card quite a bit for that.
That's the second card on this podcast we've mentioned is upping the shell game value of different decks. So interesting piece of the design of Duskmourn, maybe.
It's important.
Yeah,
honestly.
no.
That was the issue I had when I was piloting Merfolk as the what's the opposite of Premier? Last place Merfolk pilot of the show? I think I'm 0-4 with Merfolk.
I mean,
on
I found your
Showdown.
issue with merfolk to be your sequencing, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the issue. This cards like this would have helped me because I can understand how to leverage advantage of this, but when you have these like very specific sequencing of like they're not even hate pieces. It's not even like you're playing D&T. You're just like, what is your threat? How do you grow it in a way that you can anticipate what removal your opponent has? This, as a fairly experienced tempo player, I can handle. Merfolk is not a tempo deck, and I tried to pilot like one, and that's why I just, I don't know. Make it more tempo-y, I guess.
Okay, moving on in a complete opposite direction. It's Marina Vendrell's Grimoire. Let's try that one more time. Marina Vendrell's Grimoire. Yeah, it's a first and last name, right? 5 blue for a legendary artifact. When this enters, if you cast it, draw 5 cards. You have no maximum hand size and don't lose the game for having 0 life or less. Whenever you gain life, draw that many cards. Whenever you lose life, discard that many cards. Then, if you have no cards in hand, you lose the game. So this is a 6 mana artifact. Okay, it's legendary. When it ETBs, you get a trigger to draw 5 cards, and then you've got a weird like lich thing happening. Like it's like Lich Grimoire. That's the vibe here. It's a blue lich. So I can imagine seeing this in like a sneak and show deck or something with omniscience where you're like it's part of your plan to draw your whole deck. And then this is like a protection piece in there that's also a draw 5. I could see. I mean,
got whiplash from sneak attack.
So I don't
Sorry.
necessarily agree with
All right,
sneak
and
attack.
show and tell.
Oh,
yeah,
show
show
and
and tell. Show and tell. Show and
That
tell.
makes
Sorry.
much more sense.
Yeah.
Well, I got 2 cards for you. The
Great.
first is the new Tameo,
New Tameo.
right? Draw half your deck.
Right. Sure.
I mean, going the way that you went, but I was thinking from Kaladesh, the 4-mana artifact that whenever you cast a spell, gain a life.
Aetherflux Reservoir.
Aetherflux Reservoir. Like, that's, I don't know, like that specific kind of
Putting together a recycle combo.
Gentlemen, stand aside here.
Yeah, all right, yeah, okay. We're theory crafty. Wheeler's already got the puzzle put together. All right,
great.
Lich's Mirror.
Okay, so
Like,
with
I want to
another
play.
Lich card,
I want to play this in like Channel Mirror, which for those that don't know, there is a combo deck in our format that leverages Channel and Lich's Mirror. Lich's Mirror being a 5-mana artifact that says if you would lose the game, instead you reset your life total and shuffle all your permanents, including Lich's Mirror, back into your deck. And you draw 7. Like, you restart the game. What doesn't get reset is the floating mana that you have.
or all your opponent's stuff.
Yes, or your opponent's stuff.
Yeah.
So with Channel active, that's a way to immediately make you lose the game, but then go back up to 20 with a fresh 7.
and like 19
then-
green floating. Or
And
whatever.
and now you have 20 life and all this colorless, and you can do.
But you
a
draw
bunch
an
of
extra
stuff.
20 cards or whatever if you had this. in
Right.
play too.
And this gives another option
Maybe.
because like that deck typically plays Tinker in its point spread.
Okay.
Because you're looking to, like, you can Tinker out Lich's Mirror or out Chromatic Orrery, which really good with your channel mana and all that.
Right.
I was really curious actually about tinkering into this because you don't get the 5 cards. It feels like it might be primarily downside.
Oh, I don't care.
Okay.
I might cast this card. I might cast Tinker to get this card into play. Like, 6 mana is a lot of mana, but if you are a deck with Channel, because there's a single blue pip here, as well as a deck that, I don't think you'd play Workshop, but you could play Workshop or Rituals. Like, getting into this and then doing some combos with it is pretty nice. Or like, I don't know, I kind of want to play with this card in Zurin Orb. This is like, I'm going to save my thoughts for the whole set for the next episode.
Sure.
But like, this is a card where I looked at him like, ooh, I can cook with this. You know, I can make some real crap.
There's definitely some Magical Christmas Land combo potential with this card.
Children of Corliss counts as gaining life.
It's true.
All right, next up, the Scrabbing Skull Crab. This is a 1-mana 0/3 crab skeleton for a single blue pip. I'm very happy I got this.
Yeah, me too.
And Eerie, whenever an enchantment you control enters or whenever you can fully unlock a room, target player mills 2. This is our 3rd mill crab after Hedron Crab and the Snow Crab, whose name I can't remember.
Hardened Carrix?
Ruin Crab?
Ruin Crab.
There's just 2 Zendikar crabs. It's not snow. It's just
Iceberg Carrot?
There's definitely there's
Cancrix.
a snow crab
Oh,
from
okay.
the
H1.
MH1. Yeah,
is it
Modern
whenever
Horizons.
you have a snow land?
Whenever a snow permanent.
Oh, wild. Oh,
Yeah.
I missed that one.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Well, yeah. Anyways, this hurts me more than I could possibly imagine to say. I don't think Skull Crab is good.
All right, tell you what, Serge. I will trade you the next card for letting me talk about this card.
You think this is good? Are you going to
I
self
think you're allowed to talk about it if
Yeah.
you're just stoked for
That
it.
was the one thing I was going to say. But you go ahead.
Okay,
We'll
okay.
switch. We'll switch.
So, Ruin Crab, the other 1-mana crab from Zendikar Rising, can only mill your opponent, which is a bit of a downside. What I want to do is play Hedron Crab, this crab, and there's actually one from Theros Beyond Death that has Constellation, mill target player for 2 cards. This one is a bit better because it actually blocks Ragavan, but density is important here.
Yep.
There's a lot of overlap between enchantments and lands combos.
Yes, there is.
And self-milling is good for both of those combos as well.
Yes, it is.
You fill your graveyard so that you can Sudden Reclamation, or you can Replenish, or you can Savine's Reclamation, or you can combo kill. So what I want to do is play... I don't think it's that wild either because there's already a shell, pun not intended, that could fit this of like
I know where
a
you're
lands
cooking here.
enchantress self-mill combo where you mill yourself and then you mill them.
Yep.
Kind of similar to how you would like brain freeze yourself before you brain freeze your
Nope,
opponent.
and now you're cooking. Yeah, if you got your infinite fast pawn combo going, once you got the loop going, then you kill them and you use this as an engine to fuel yourself to get there. Oh, Benjamin Wheeler!
Not to mention there is an enchantment that can repeatedly play itself from Brothers War called Meticulous Excavation, which is actually just like Sleeper, the best card for Enchantress decks in God knows how long, I guess in Sithis. But that's a way to infinitely trigger this and also do some other combo kills because you want to return your own permanents to replay them to trigger landfall and stuff. As well as, I mean, God, trade routes pretty hot with this. Like you can, return
Trade
your lands.
routes,
It's an
bro.
enchantment.
Trade routes
to
is
do
pretty
this.
hot, has been declared.
There's very few people that appreciate trade routes quite as much as I do, and
Yeah,
with Fast Bond.
I'm worried that the fumes from the kitchen are getting to us, but I will agree that there's some cooking happening here.
I mean, it's when you get density in a 1-drop card that can be both your engine and your kill condition. That's pretty exciting. There was another card that
We have to call it 4 crab.
the other card I was mentioning that is very important, and we'll talk about it more in the next episode, is that we have Urza Saga as an enchantment land that fills this, but we have received a second enchantment land.
Yes, we have.
So that you have, again, a density of these enchantment lands that you can repeatedly trigger off these. Like, the way that these combo decks work, they sound terrible. And don't get me
they
wrong,
are.
They might be.
Right.
But
I mean, Jacob almost won the...
yeah, they work.
thing, yeah.
They work because the neck bone is connected to the thigh bone, which is connected to the shin bone.
Yeah.
It's all just like every card kind of like ties into other cards, so that when you draw off the top of your deck, go, oh, well, this can fill like part A of my combo. This fills part B.
You're
going
gonna bring old Serge back.
Yeah,
Old Serge who used to brew junk like this, right?
It's very funny because we just got you off of it in the finals of the YJ Weekly with like blue black
real deck,
psychic frog and like, good cards, and now I'm like, look at the crab, Serge.
know.
Look at the crab.
All right.
I like
Is-
it. The
is this-
argument is like, it doesn't matter that one of the parts of the Rube Goldberg machine is just a like bike horn, as long as all of the parts of the Rube Goldberg machine exist.
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Maybe it's too deep, but there's a 1-mana artifact, I think, from like RTR block that whenever any permanent enters the battlefield in your control, target player mills a card.
Oh, Altar of the Brood.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. From
It's
Cons.
cons. Yeah, cons.
From
the
Cons,
one-mana
pardon me.
artifacts.
1-mana card. You can find it off Urza Saga.
Quick, he said it first.
Ooh. All right, back to me, then to Nelly. Pardon me.
Sure.
Silent Hall Creeper. This is a Surge card. This is a 2-mana 1/1 enchantment horror for 1 and a blue. Can't be blocked, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, choose one that hasn't been chosen. Put 2+1/+1 counters on it, draw a card, or have it become a copy of another target creature that you control. And as Wheeler mentioned, just hot off losing in Game 3 of the finals at our weekly at Highlander. God, should have mulled, but I digress. I'm very excited about this card. I think it is an excellent threat in Blue X tempo decks. I think all of the modes are fantastic. Your order is probably draw a card and then look at the board and decide if you want to copy something or put the +1/+1 counters on it. This is one of the few cases where I think it being an enchantment is either not relevant or a downside. It opens it up to a little bit more removal, especially if you're against a blue opponent, but a can't be blocked threat that both grows, draws a card, and has the potential to become something very spicy is pretty heckin' cool. I'm quite high on this card. For now. I mean, it'll probably get replaced by, the density of like good evasive threats at 2.
I'm playing this in Flying Men for sure.
Oh yeah.
I like it in Flying Men. I like it in any like sort of fast Blue X deck, as long as there's not too many colors, because then it starts to get outclassed a bit. But I don't know. I think the most common play pattern is just going to be make it into a Watch Wolf that can't be blocked immediately, and then draw the card, and then.
It can still be blocked because it becomes a copy. It doesn't retain any other.
No,
I mean get the counters. I mean get the counters. Two
sorry.
plus one
Yes,
plus one counters.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So 2 mana for a 3/3, but they take 1 the first hit, and then you
Do you
draw
like
a card.
pressure before drawing a card?
Yeah. Well, it's going to depend.
Well, that's
obviously.
that's the cool part.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's great.
Do you want to
Do the
go
best
card?
one.
Do you want to go card neutral with this so that if they kill it, it doesn't matter as much? Do you want to make it bigger so that it's harder for them to kill, or that they have to kill it now because it's doing too much damage? Like, do you want to just immediately turn it? Like, if you played this in that Bant Sanctum Stompy deck you were talking about, do you want to just immediately turn this into another Enchantress?
Yeah.
Like, There's
Double Setessan Champion.
That's the one I was thinking of. Like, maybe you just make another Setessan champion immediately.
I gotta give him props for this card, because in modern card design, we get a lot of cards that are just like, yeah, why don't you do everything? And it just like doesn't necessarily matter the order you do it. But like this card, it does a lot, but there is an endpoint that will like potentially just convert this into something else that you're not super excited about, or the play pattern of don't play another creature and just ride a 3/3 unblockable. Right?
Because it's not a May. If you want to attack with it, it's going to get in for damage unless they're killing it or fogging, right? Because it can't be blocked. So every time it turns sideways, you're going to have to pick another mode. And so if you have another target creature, you have to get off of the Hall Creeper, and now they can start blocking it.
So what I'm getting at is it's more dynamic design than some of the other cards that we've seen recently, and that rules.
No, absolutely. I totally agree. And I want to give R&D kudos for printing a 2-mana 1/1 and getting us excited about a creature that costs the same amount of mana as the opponent's Orcish Bowmasters that's going to kill this immediately before we attack.
They only
it'll
have
be
one.
way cooler than they are.
Yeah.
All right, Nelly, take us home for the last blue card.
It's the Tale of Tamio, a saga enchantment. 2 and a blue for a legendary saga with chapters 1 and 2 and 3 are all mill 2 cards. If 2 cards that share a card type were milled this way, draw a card and repeat this process. And then chapter 4 is exile any number of target instant sorcery and or Tamio Planeswalker cards from your graveyard. Copy them. You may cast any number of the copies. So I believe, am I reading this right? If you're told to copy them and then you can cast the copies, that means you're not spending mana.
No, you have to spend.
You do have to spend the mana?
Yes.
Okay. The way that they're like, when they're like, you may
cast it
copies or
without
whatever.
paying its mana cost.
Yeah, but it's like the copy them sentence confuses me.
Copy them.
It's like the copies exist in some zone or whatever. Like, where are the copies? And then you can spend mana on the copies to put them on the stack, I guess, right?
Pretty sure if
copies
you didn't
exist
have
in
to
exile
spend
or something?
mana. Cast
All right.
implies that you have to spend mana unless otherwise specified.
Usually, yeah. Like, if it was exile cards from top of your library, you may cast any number of
I
copies.
literally looked at this earlier today. I'm going to reread
Great.
Dread Horde Arcanist, and I'll let you know.
Yeah, so assuming you have to spend the mana on them, and this card isn't just, like, really cracked when you get to Season 4 or Chapter 4 here, you know, there's some decks, obviously, that have more of the same card type, like we've talked about with Sanctum Stompy or land/enchantment combos decks, like that have a lot of the same kind of thing. You're more likely to hit drawing 2 cards. You can also set it up with various different cantrips, or, you know, dares I speak the name of the Sensei's Divining Top to like try to get cards into your hand off of the Tale of Tamio.
I've been putting top in decks again.
Yeah, I mean,
So, you know, just saying.
we got the taste of these free surveil lands, and then we're all like, oh, I love manipulating the top of my library. I wonder if there was some other way I could do this.
So, important question. Is this just bad Underworld Breach?
No, I think it's different. I think it's very different from Underworld Breach.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I'm just thinking about that, right? Like, you get a density of cards in your graveyard, and you try and play all the cards in your graveyard again. But obviously, this doesn't contribute to your storm count, and it hoses your graveyard. But is it trying to...
It doesn't let you recur anything,
Yeah, is it
right?
trying to play in that same space of, like, here's a cool way to, like...
It also doesn't have read ahead, and there's 4 chapters. So I think it's important to note that, like, this is a card that says 3 mana, enchantment, ETB, mill 2 cards.
See you on turn 8.
Yeah. It comes in, you mill 2 cards, and then maybe you draw a card. But you could repeat this process. I mean, if you're like... If this is some sort of combo piece, and you've already done whatever to your library so that this just mills you out, you know, you've taken out all the non-land cards or whatever, that's cool. Now you put all your lands in your graveyard, and this effect is going to kill you. But you have a lab man in play, right? Like, maybe that's what you're up to with this card. I don't actually see where this card is good.
I don't think it is.
Okay.
I think it's too slow for our format.
All right.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Then let's move on to black cards. Starting with Come Back Wrong. This is a 3-mana sorcery for 2 and a black. Destroy target creature. If a creature card is put into a graveyard this way, return it to the battlefield under your control. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Cool initiative creature over there. Sure would be a shame if something happened to it. It slices. It dices. This is a little bit slow for removal spell. We have increasingly been spending less and less mana and less time. Like we're down to almost exhaustively instant 1 mana black spells with like cut down or whatever, or free spells. I can't remember any of the name of these right now. Snuff out.
Sure.
Right.
Fury.
Oh, I was trying to think specifically about black.
Okay. Contagion.
That to spend 3 mana on a sorcery feels kind of iffy. But in 2024, we're playing to the board so aggressively, and creatures are getting so good. And as we said, Fury, Solitude, a lot of the creatures that we do play have such a high ETB that this feels like a destroy target creature or win the game sort of mode, depending on the matchup. I mean, it could do stone nothing. You could have a really expensive, slow removal spell, but I think it's kind of fun. I think it's cool at the very least.
I might try it in the like hoarding Broodlord saw in half combo, because it just gives you a bad saw in half.
You could kill your own creature, right? Just to get an ETB a second time.
It's wild that black sees 3 mana for Ephemerate, and then at the end of the turn you have to sacrifice your creature and just licks its lips. Like, oh, terrible Ephemerate.
God, bad saw in half
Sleeve it
is
up
so
immediately.
funny.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it can't. It has less of a downside to killing the opponent's creature. It's actually like an upside for killing the opponent's creature. So it has that going for it.
Yeah, I could see it in like maybe one of the initiative decks, like Mardu or Esper Initiative. But
are we playing this over Parting Gift?
I don't have a deck with Parting Gift
Isn't
in it.
from Bloomborough the white instant that exile target creature?
Oh, right.
Right? If you give them a gift, return it. Like it's either an exile their creature or flicker your own creature.
no.
But now we have come back wrong. I mean, that's an instant, right?
Yeah. No. That's an instant.
It's also white though.
Yeah, but it's 2 mana.
All right.
It's there's some similar design space there.
That's what I
see
was
where your
thinking,
head's at,
right?
Serge,
Like,
a little bit.
because I've been seeing that in Flash decks and Turbo Initiative decks, and then maybe, again, as you said, like bad saw in half is kind of funny.
Yeah, but we have good saw in half.
Yeah. No, I mean, only the decks that are like revolving around saw in half should be like playing second bad saw in half.
All right.
But yeah, no, maybe an initiative. Honestly, if you're just like you love Ephemerate and your deck also kind of likes flexible sort of cheap cards. 3 mana is a heavy ass, so I think a bunch of decks are going to try this and be like, oh, this card.
Yeah, like no, actually,
Oh,
Yeah.
3 mana.
For 3 mana, I could just cast another White Plume Adventurer, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Wheeler.
My invitational cards, Cynical Loner. 1 and a black for a human survivor. It's a 3/1 and says Cynical Loner can't be blocked by glimmers. Glimmer is a creature type that shows up in this set.
Like Enduring Innocence.
Yes. And has survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if Cynical Loner is tapped, you may search your library for a card and put it into your graveyard and then shuffle. So we have a 2 mana 3/1 that if it becomes tapped, you get to Entomb, which is a very powerful ability, but also an awkward timing for it. Like, typically, if I'm entombing, I want to do something with that, like, immediately. Like, I guess there are slots in, like, a mono black aggressive deck where, like, tutoring up, like, a Scrap Heap Scrounger or a Bloodghast or Tenacious Underdog or whatever can be kind of nice. But I think the one toughness on this, combined with, like, the fact that this card is not getting anything too huge, make it just a little too unplayable.
All right. Nelly, you're up. Oh, our first commander card.
Yeah, so this card's from the commander set. It's called Deluge of Doom. 2 and a black for a sorcery that says all creatures get -X/-X until end of turn, where X is the number of card types among cards in your graveyard. Kind of neat, sort of Wrath of God variant. Honestly feels kind of like alpha beta for me. Like there's something about the simplicity and elegance of this text box that, I don't know, just feels like it's been around for a while. But no, this card has never seen the light of day. We've had Mutilate, and we've had Blood on the Snow, and no, that's the wrong one.
You're thinking of Dead of Winter.
Dead of Winter. Yeah, we've had Dead of Winter.
Toxic Deluge.
Obviously, Toxic
Deluge is a
Deluge.
classic,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so is this card replacing Toxic Deluge? No, but I could see it if you're like the heavy black controlling deck. Like the thing about the the large black as the premier black control player of the format or whatever. The big black decks don't usually get their graveyard attacked a ton, and they do tend to like have a way to keep putting stuff in their graveyard. Like, sure, any deck can attack any other deck's graveyard. It can happen. It's just that like usually you're sort of casually going for Reanimator. You're not like going for Reanimator as your main plan. Your main plan is like Thoughtseize and kill your stuff and then just expand my mana. I might actually cast this demon from my hand, or maybe I'll reanimate something. But like if you're trying to mess up my graveyard, that actually doesn't matter to me that much. So getting 4 or 5 creature type or different card types in your graveyard is pretty common for those decks. So I don't know. I could see this as playable, basically. So that's what I'm saying.
Never killing Tarmogoyf.
I have one. Yeah, that's funny,
that's
right?
funny.
That's funny.
So
yeah, it's true.
The rebuttal to that I'm curious about is like, why do you play a 3-mana Wrath? And it's because you don't think you're going to live until turn 4. Right? Like that's typically what it is. Like you're against an aggressive deck. You want to be able to cast a Wrath as quickly as possible, or keep Wrath open and have counter magic or something like that, depending on the matchup. And Deluge of Doom in particular feels awkward unless you get very lucky with like your Surveil lands, because you like fetch Surveil, maybe cast an instant or something like that. Like, what is the actual expected kill with this card if you have to play it early? And I'm thinking the downside on this renders it very close to being unplayable. I don't know if you're wanting to Wrath on turn 8 or something.
3 mana -3/3 is pretty good. Like that is a rate that we don't actually see often
And
because
I guess
of
it's
how
better
good
than
it
a
is.
Pyroclasm, right? Or whatever.
Yeah, Anger of the Gods level, right? Like maybe if you don't think of it as Toxic Deluge, but you think of it as Black Anger of the Gods, maybe then it's suddenly seems okay.
That also can scale up. Like you can get goozled by this. I think this card is a black X card, not a mono black card. Like you need to play some other cards, probably blue cards.
Blue, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, as the second best black pilot, mono black control pilot in the format,
That's
I put some reps in that deck. Seriously,
Look at what they have to fight over.
At 3 mana in this, you already have a ton of -2/+2 upside, -2/+2 and Scry, -2/+2 and Exile and stuff
Sure,
like
when
that.
you're playing the Infests or whatever.
Yeah,
there's a ton
right.
of different cool ones.
It's just like
but Infest is like unplayable.
yeah, and I'm thinking this might just be Infest most of the time.
I think you're thinking of this card too much on turn 3. Like this is a card that you can play on like turn 5. In fact, I would argue that this card scales a little bit better than Toxic Deluge, as Toxic Deluge gets a little more risky to play later
As
on
your
in the
life
game.
total gets lower.
So life total gets lower.
Yeah.
This becomes a more efficient board clear later in the game as you have played more Magic the Gathering, where you are going to need to clear the board and then also keep up mana to either counter the next haste threat that comes down or kill the thing or deploy your own threat afterwards. So it lets you double spell later on.
I would never expected Wheeler to argue in favor of Deluge of Doom.
It's an interesting card.
It's got Delirium. Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on. Next up, we have the Demonic Console. This is a 2-mana sorcery for 1 and a black. Search your library for a demon. Reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Or, if you have Delirium, if there are 4 or more card types amongst cards in your graveyard, instead search your library for any card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. So, on the downside, find a demon. On the upside, Demonic Tutor, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Now,
what did you say?
I was going to say,
That's
well,
where demons live.
Yeah.
It just means from the underworld.
welcome to one of 3 decks. Reanimator, some type of really weird red-black, all of the 4-mana 6/6 demons with downside
Demon
deck.
Stompy?
Demon Stompy, we've been there before. What's the third deck? I don't even know if there's a third deck.
Whoa, what?
I think
Are you
can
higher on
consider it
this?
for a creature combo because they tend to put a bunch of things in their bin, right?
I'm very high on this.
You think
card.
this is free DT? Pointsless DT?
I think it's closer to Infernal Tutor than
Sure.
anything, but Infernal Tutor also is pretty broken. And like,
So go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
Infernal Tutor being a card, for those that don't know, casting Infernal Tutor without Hellbent does not do anything. Like unless you have double basic lands.
It's usually not indexed with double of the same basic land.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you really need to be Hellbent in order for it to do anything.
Right.
Um,
It's
and-
situational.
Yes. This card also requires you to have, like, in order for it to be Demonic Tutor, requires you to have a variety of card types in your graveyard. One of the easy ways of doing that is just casting cheap spells, which Storm decks and Combo decks tend to do in the first couple of turns, fetching lands, which is a thing that these 4 to 5 color Storm decks tend to do, and I don't know, maybe an artifact finds its way into the graveyard, like cracking an LED while holding priority with this card on the stack. So that part's kind of cool. The one part that this Delirium doesn't line up super well.
Actually, no. There's an intervening if clause. I don't think you can cast this hold priority on the stack with an LED. I think
You can,
Can you?
Yeah.
Well, because there's no targets. There's no modes.
Yeah, it's not
You
a mode.
just put Demonic Council on the stack, and then you start reading when
I
it
thought
goes to resolve.
I thought specifically for Delirium that intervening if clause means the LED interaction doesn't work. If you don't have Delirium before that.
No, I'm casting my spell, and then with this spell on the stack, if I gain Delirium, then it will resolve with Delirium.
I don't think it's modes. I know that there's an intervening if clause.
Yeah, because it checks on when you cast it and upon resolution, it checks twice. And normally the second line of text doesn't even appear on the spell unless Delirium already meets.
Yeah, I think for the way this card works, it doesn't check on cast because there's no choices to be made until resolution. But I know that like if it said like deal 4 damage to target creature if there are 4 or more card types in your graveyard, like if it was a targeted spell, then you wouldn't be able to like choose that mode if it was like only targeted if it was Delirium, unless you had Delirium. But because this doesn't do anything
enough interaction.
Yeah,
maybe.
so I mean, correct us if we're wrong, chap.
Yeah,
but I'm with Wheeler on this one. I think you can use it to replace the Infernal Tutor in the situation that your LED will give you 4 card types, which usually it will.
I derailed this and I apologize.
On that note, Yawgmoth's Will is a bit of an awkward thing with Delirium. But I also just think that maybe some of these bigger Storm, like Yawgwill Storm lists, should try playing Gristlebrand.
Sure.
Like, you know, what you're already just looking to have a number of hit 7 or 8 black mana win the game cards with Behold the Beyond and Diabolic Revelation and whatnot. Casting a Gristlebrand on turn 3 is going to win the game against a lot of different archetypes.
Very unexpected too. That'd be funny.
Yeah, I don't think
Is that the equivalent?
that should be ignored.
That's got to be the equivalent of a lot of these green decks now splashing for Atraxa off a natural order. Just random Atraxa and you're like 2-color green deck.
Yeah, it just shows up.
This is my plan now.
Yeah, deal with it. You're like,
I mentioned the Broodlord Saw in half deck, so I obviously was just immediately in on this card to be like, well, I've got at least one deck where I'm going to play
I
it.
don't think
sure.
Broodlord's a demon. I thought that when I saw this card, but then I remember trying to look up different demons.
Oh my god, have I been
don't
referring
think-
to this as a demon card?
Yeah,
Which
Hoarding
one
Broodlord is just a dragon.
Hoarding Broodlord. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It
Awkward.
feels like it should be a demon.
All right, well, you got to go get Runescarred then. I'm playing Runescarred as well.
Or get a non-English copy of Hoarding Broodlord.
And just lie and cheat.
yeah,
Yeah,
just
okay.
lie
We
and
don't. Over here at North 100, we do not condone lying and cheating, and we'll be
wild.
talking to Wheeler
Hey,
after.
you
this
don't
episode.
speak for Nelson.
I don't condone Hoarding Broodlord being a dragon instead of a demon. I'm just like shocked.
Feels like it should be a demon.
I don't cast that spell so many times. I thought it was a demon. But yeah, this card's pretty exciting. I think you could put it in some other decks too besides just Storm. Like 4 cards in your graveyard happens.
Reanimator.
I just think the upside is high enough on this card that you should stretch this number of scenarios in which it's playable.
Yeah.
All right.
It's 3 points, right?
All right, Wheeler, you're up next.
Innocuous Rat. 1 into black for a 1/1 rat. When Innocuous Rat dies, you manifest Dread. This card's pretty good. I'd play it in Aristocrats. There are very few copies of the I'm a little idiot, but when I die, I upgrade that still see play. And I think one that provides additional selection can be one of those cards. I am a little upset that this card is my card and that it is sandwiched between 2 of my favorite cards in the set review. Nelson, What's the next card?
You sure? You can have it if you want.
You'll
You'll talk about it. You're going to talk about all the cards.
I mean, I'll talk about
Although, before we talk about the next card, I want to point out that Wheeler is championing Doomed Dissenter plus Millicard. But I guess in Aristocrats, you're almost always flipping for 1 mana and then getting 2 more bodies. So that's relevant.
Actually, Nilsson, I believe I'm championing Sultai Emissary plus Millicard.
Oh, okay.
Which actually does manifest, which can be relevant, right? Like
Is
you might
Sultai
just
Emissary in like Aristocrats?
It was for a while, but now they've swapped out for like typically they're on like Brindle Shoat and maybe one other version of this.
You had such a great throw, but I want to talk about this more too. I love this in Recurrent Nightmare.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because that's a card that already wants to fill its graveyard. So the Manifest Dread is
okay.
huge for more value on that. And it leaves a body behind. So when you Recurring Nightmare, you can also loop
I'm
better.
skeptical. I feel like y'all are going to try this in these decks, and then the next set's going to come out, and this rat is going to be the first
Oh yeah,
card that
I
gets
mean,
got.
I'm going to include this Rat and Aristocrats,
Sure.
and then Foundations is going to come out with that new Blood Artist they've officially previewed, and then I'm going to play that card.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Metamorphosis Fanatic, not Metamorphosis Fanfic. Go somewhere to a different website for that. This is from the Commander set. It's 4 black for a 4/4 human cleric with lifelink. And when this enters, return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a lifelink counter on it. Well, that's incredible. This already goes in a bunch of Nelly's decks. But wait, it has Miracle, 1 and a black. What? Oh no! Triumph of St. Catherine in black, you'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is probably going to be a staple.
Yep.
Triumph of St. Catherine has been in like decks that have white mana in our format, and frankly, I'm kind of getting tired of it. Like I thought when I first saw Triumph of St. Catherine, I'm like, that's a cool card for these blue-white control decks to have like another Baneslayer that can recur and they can get it out cheap. It's very elegant for those decks. And then Time Pass is just like, no, decks just play this card because it also just hits you too early. So it like works with, next to Ragavan and whatnot. So I don't know, man. You're going to surveil a big idiot in your bin and then you're going to slam this against me. And now you've got 100 power on turn 2 and I'm just already tired of it.
I think
I would have been stoked for the 6 mana no miracle version
I think Esper might be like sleeper OP color combination.
of like aggro creatures now.
No, well, just like
Cards.
people get really high up on check pile, 4 color, no white, which is quite good. Check pile is very good. Yeah. I mean, it's still not Jeskai, but it's quite good because it gets to leverage cards like Psychic Frog and Orcish Bowmasters. And if we add white, we get to play a Johnny Nakatl Pariah and Swords and Path. And yeah, you could play Triumph. You could play this one. Like, just like an Esper.Canlander.deck, I think is pretty great, like especially in a more aggressive metagame. Check Pile's a deck that is going to fold time to time to something like Price of Progress and Blood Moon and whatnot. But an Esper version will have a lot of tools that are really powerful against red decks, not just from the life gain on your 2 mana 4/4 that reanimates something and also gives that life gain, but also from Psychic Frog just not being a card you can reasonably kill with Lightning Bolt, Swords, Path, Triumph of St. Catherine, whatever.
I'm sorry. I need to go back. I read this card. I don't know if I said this out loud, but in my mind, whenever I've been looking at this, I thought it said return up to 1 target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it.
It's a
life counter.
Yeah.
Sorry, red deck.
It doesn't even make the creature get exiled when it
No,
dies.
no. It makes it better.
Oh my god.
I would like to use this as an opportunity to call the copy that we get for myself.
Why would you get it?
Because I said so.
Are we only getting one? Oh, it's in the Commander product.
The Commander.
James, we're going to need 3 copies of the
player.
black deck.
No. As the premier Miracles pilot of the format.
Can I just be the premier black cards player and get it?
Yeah,
for that
sorry.
reason?
No. Yeah, I don't know if you get to shoddy this one. I think all 3 of
We're
us
all
want to
just
copy
racing
this
to
one.
The Commander boxes.
Yeah. Let's move
Hey,
on.
Graham.
Yeah.
Serge and Nelson said.
AHR.
Graham?
Osseous Stick Twister. Did I pronounce the first word right?
I don't know.
I don't know either. 2 mana 2/2 artifact creature Scarecrow with lifelink and delirium. At the beginning of your end step, if there are 4 more card types amongst cards in your graveyard, each opponent may sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card. Then Stick Twister deals damage equal to its power to each opponent who didn't sacrifice a permanent or discard a card this way. So we have a punish mechanic card, which is kind of interesting. But it's also on a 2-mana 2/2 artifact creature with lifelink. So your bare minimum is kind of great. It's a 2-mana 2/2 with lifelink. That's going to do a lot of pressure. That's an artifact, so that already synergizes great with a lot of decks. And it's going to deal an extra 2 damage every turn or more if you grow it or start taxing their permanents, which is kind of cool. I like this in, I think we've been calling the deck Battle Bots lately. Typically in like a Grixis or Esper shell, you're playing a lot of artifact creatures or playing a lot of fast mana. It's up there with your any deck that's playing Kappa Cannoneer is probably pretty happy to see this. Now, it breaks my heart a little bit. These decks are increasingly getting pip heavy, so you're probably not playing Workshop all that often to accelerate stuff out.
Coward. You're playing Workshop.
No, I'm the coward. I just
What?
I've tried like 3 different versions of like Grixis and Esper robots lately, just to be playing as many Urza Saga tokens as I can, and
Yeah.
like the Workshop is awkward sometimes.
Coward.
Yeah. So in conclusion, I think this card is a great role player. It's just a good damage threat in a deck that's looking for density of cheap artifact creatures with upside.
Overlord of the Bale Merc. 3. Oh, we do have an Overlord. 3 black for a 5/5 enchantment creature avatar horror with impending 5 for 1 and a black. So impending is an alternate cost or alternate way of casting this card. And if you cast this spell for its impending cost, it enters with, in this case, 5 time counters, and it isn't a creature until the last is removed, meaning that it is just an enchantment sitting in play with 5 time counters until it no longer has any more time counters.
This ain't suspend, y'all.
And at the beginning of your end step, you remove a time counter from it. When Overlord of the Bale Merc enters or attacks, you mill 4 cards. Then you may return a non-avatar creature card or a planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. This is, I think, the only one of this cycle that we're going to end up talking about. Maybe there's another one, but this is... I don't hate this card. I like investing in my future when it comes to Magic the Gathering. And because of that, I do not invest in my present because it all goes to Magic the Gathering. No, it's I like.
You've noticed
what-
we're wearing cheap green hoodies. or gray
I
hoodies.
mean,
Sorry.
hold on. What? This is very nice.
This is Ralph Lauren. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm trying to boost what you're saying about not investing in your present.
Never.
No, but don't insult our drip.
Yeah, but don't insult my Ralph Lauren. Okay. Polo head to toe, though. Anyways, you get to cast a spell that fills your graveyard and then gets to raise dead something or bring back a planeswalker early on, and then you can get it on every attack. I like this one a bit more than the other ones. Mind you, the impending cost is so long. Impending 5 is a very long time to wait. But if you are playing this in like a recurring nightmare deck, which I actually don't hate this in that slot, then you're probably going to reach a point in the game where this card will come off of its impending cost, or just casting it for 5 mana because you're a green X or green black X deck.
Yeah, I like
Seems
that.
kind of reasonable.
This one only costs 5 on the top side, so it's like a lot more. There's going to be a lot more scenarios where you're like, oh, okay, well, I could just wait 1 turn and then cast it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's it.
And the final card, Nelly.
It's Valgagoth, Terror Eater. Would
Nope.
you believe Valgavoth, Terror Eater? It's spelled Valgavoth.
I wrote this down improperly in our spreadsheet and also have been saying it incorrectly all day.
Great.
Yeah.
I read it off the spreadsheet, but that's okay. I might not have been completely to blame for this instance of me mispronouncing this name, but I will be completely to blame for all the other times in my life that I mispronounce this card, and there will be many. Anyways, it's 6 generic and 3 black pips, so 6 black, 9 mana for a 9/9 legendary creature Elder Demon. This one is a demon.
Demonic
Hooray.
console hit.
That's right. It has flying and lifelink and ward. Sacrifice 3 non-land permanents. And if a card you didn't control would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. And during your turn, you may play cards exiled with Valgavoth. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than pay its mana cost. Okay, so some pretty interesting things here. First off, right off the rip, it doesn't say that it exiles itself or shuffles itself back in if it goes into your graveyard somehow. So if you somehow manage to accidentally put this in your graveyard and then hit it with reanimate.
How did this get here?
Oops, surveilled this Valgavoth into my yard. Anyways, so pretty solid reanimator target here. It's legendary, so it could work with that 2 mana one that brings back legendaries. It has ward, sacrifice 3 non-land permanents, so we're not nearly as worried about Caracas as with a lot of things. It doesn't have hexproof,
or
but
any removal.
it's pretty close.
No, it has hexproof.
It's pretty
Yeah.
close to hexproof. I mean, we sing the praises on this show oftentimes of cards that put multiple permanents onto the battlefield, and your opponent's really going to want to see the novice inspectors and their ilk anytime that you manage to get this into play. So it exiles all the stuff that would be put in their graveyard, especially the things that they're trying to sacrifice in order to pay the ward. But you can only cast the cards that they exiled this way on your own turn. So, if your opponent does like sorcery, lose their board to swords this, you're not going to get to cast that stuff, even if they
or their counters.
Yeah, even if they exiled stuff that has flash, because you only get this ability on your turn. But otherwise, 9/9 flying lifelink. And sometimes you're going to get to cast their free stuff. So cool reanimator target.
This has the same templating as Igra as well, where the ward costs will go up there, and then you could blank, you can kill one of their creatures in response, and they don't have enough permanents to even pay the ward cost. So you could 2 for 0 them.
Yeah.
Nice.
or 2 for 1, I guess, but still, yeah.
Nice vein ripper, you tiny baby.
This has got to be one of the more exciting and impressive reanimator targets we've hit in a while, right?
Yeah. I think it's the best one since Atraxa.
Yeah.
Was 18 months ago.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, Atraxa's card draw is probably more often going to do things to advance the rest of your board, I think, than Valgavoth will, but that word, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, this...
All these surveil lands suddenly coming back to bite you.
This card's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, my friends. On that note, we're going to call it here on part 1 of our set review. Thank you so much for watching. If there's any cards you think we missed, if there's any cards you think you got wrong, if you're a judge and you want to weigh in on the demonic console ruling,
Right. Yeah, that's an important one.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments.
hit us in the comments down below. A reminder that everything we do is brought to you by you with your support of the Patreon over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. I've been Serge, joined by the wonderful Nelly.
Hey, I was happy to be here. Thank you for asking me on.
We had a Wheeler.
Valgabug.
Thank you to James for putting this on tech.
You're welcome.
And we will see you in part 2. Until next time, bye-bye.